Night flight from New York to London. A young CEO in an expensive tailored suit sat in business class, reviewing contracts on her laptop. Next to her, a man in a worn jacket gently rocked his sleeping daughter in his arms. She glanced at him, a slight smirk on her lips. "You managed to get a ticket here? Or did someone gift it to you?" He replied quietly, "I paid for it with honest hours." She waved her hand dismissively. "Sounds like a motivational poster." Hours later, as the plane began its descent, the intercom crackled to life. The captain's voice trembled slightly. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. There's a special passenger on board. Sir, the crew has just informed me. They're saluting you." The CEO froze. Her blood went cold. Daniel Hayes, 38 years old, single father, former Air Force officer, now a civilian aerospace engineer. Olivia Moretti, 32 years old, CEO of Moretti Dynamics, Europe's leading tech conglomerate. Sophie, 7 years old, Daniel's daughter. She loved the sky and constantly asked her father about the people who fly. Daniel had served in the Air Force for 12 years, fighter pilot, instructor, decorated officer with a call sign that became legendary, Falcon. But that was before the accident, before he lost 3 crew members in a training exercise gone wrong, before the guilt became too heavy to carry in uniform. He'd resigned quietly, honorably discharged, moved to a small town, took a job as an engineer designing commercial aircraft components. It paid the bills. Let him be present for Sophie. He raised her alone. His wife had left when Sophie was 2, unable to handle the military lifestyle. He'd been both mother and father ever since. For 3 years, Sophie had one wish: to visit the Aviation Museum in London. She dreamed of seeing the old warplanes, the Spitfires, the history her father rarely talked about. Daniel saved for 2 years. When he saw a glitch in the airline's booking system offering business class seats at economy prices, he grabbed 2 tickets before the error was corrected. That morning, as they walked through the airport, Sophie squeezed his hand. "Daddy, are we really going to London?" "We really are, sweetheart. And we're flying business class? Just this once. Like the fancy people?" He smiled. "We're just as fancy. We just don't show it off." When they boarded and found seats 12F and 12G, Daniel felt out of place. The other passengers had designer luggage, expensive watches, an air of entitlement that made him uncomfortable. Olivia Moretti occupied seat 12E. She just closed a $2 billion acquisition. She was flying high in more ways than one. When Daniel settled into his seat with Sophie, Olivia looked up from her tablet and raised an eyebrow. "You're sure you're in the right section? This is business class." Daniel checked his boarding pass. "Yes, 12F. I double-checked." She smirked. "Well, just try not to snore." Daniel said nothing, just adjusted the blanket around Sophie, who was already drowsy from the early morning departure. When the flight attendant came by with champagne, Olivia took a glass and gestured toward Daniel. "And for you, sir?" "Just water, please." Olivia chuckled. "Water in business class? How economical." Daniel met her eyes calmly. "I don't drink when I'm responsible for someone." "Responsible? She's asleep." "Doesn't matter. She needs me alert." Olivia shook her head and returned to her tablet, but she muttered just loud enough for him to hear. "Funny, people who dress like you usually aren't in this cabin." Daniel chose not to respond. He'd learned long ago that some battles weren't worth fighting. Sophie stirred and whispered, "Daddy, when I grow up, I want to fly like you did." "You'll fly even higher than me, baby." Olivia overheard and let out a soft, mocking laugh. "Everyone has dreams, I suppose." Daniel turned to her, his voice gentle but firm. "Dreams are the one thing we should never mock. Ms. Moretti, Olivia Moretti. Mr. Hayes, Daniel Hayes." "Well, Mr. Hayes, I found that dreams are wonderful, but reality is what pays the bills." "Reality is just what we make of our dreams." She rolled her eyes and went back to her work. A flight attendant named Sarah watched the exchange from the galley. She'd been flying this route for 15 years and had developed a sixth sense about passengers. There was something about the man in 12F, the way he moved, the way he held himself. Military, she thought, maybe still serving. She didn't know yet how right she was. Flight attendant Sarah Mitchell later posted, "That CEO mocked him the entire boarding process, made snide comments about his jacket, his water instead of champagne, his dreaming, but he never raised his voice, just smiled softly and looked after his daughter. That's when I knew he was someone special. 3 hours into the flight, everything changed. They were over the Atlantic, 35,000 feet up, when the turbulence hit. Not the gentle bumps passengers expect. This was violent, bone-rattling. The seatbelt sign pinged on. The plane lurched left, then right. Oxygen masks dropped. Passengers screamed. From the cockpit, a flight attendant emerged, her face pale. Does anyone on this aircraft have flight experience? Anyone at all? Silence. Fear. Confused glances. The captain collapsed. The first officer is managing, but we need help. Is there anyone? More silence. Daniel gently lifted Sophie's head from his shoulder and placed her carefully in the seat, still asleep somehow, despite the chaos. He stood. Olivia grabbed his arm. What are you doing? Sit down. Let the professionals handle it. He looked at her calmly. I am a professional. You? You're going to make things worse. Sit down. He gently removed her hand from his arm. Ma'am, I need you to watch my daughter. Can you do that? Before she could respond, he was already moving toward the cockpit. The flight attendant recognized something in his bearing. Sir, do you have flight experience? 12 years, Air Force. Fighter jets, transport aircraft, emergency protocols. Her eyes widened. Come with me. He entered the cockpit. The first officer was young, maybe 28, drenched in sweat, hands shaking on the controls. Captain's unconscious. I can't stabilize. The hydraulics are acting up. I don't... Daniel's voice cut through the panic. Calm, authoritative. First officer, I need you to take a breath. I'm going to help you. What's your name? Mark. Mark Peterson. Okay, Mark. I'm Daniel. I'm former Air Force. I've flown in worse conditions than this. Tell me what you're feeling on the controls. It's sluggish, delayed response, like there's a lag between input and action. Daniel scanned the instruments. He saw it immediately. You've got a hydraulic pressure drop on the primary system. You need to switch to auxiliary. I tried. It's not responding. Because you need to reset the breaker first. It's that panel on your left. The red switch. Mark flipped it. The controls suddenly felt different. Good. Now here's what we're going to do. I'll talk you through this. We're going to bring her down smooth, but we need to find an alternate landing site. This bird isn't making it to London. For the next 20 minutes, Daniel stood behind Mark, walking him through every adjustment, every degree of pitch, every calculation for their emergency descent. His voice never wavered, never showed fear, just calm competence born from thousands of hours in the sky. In the cabin, Olivia sat frozen with Sophie's hand in hers. The little girl had woken up and asked, Where's Daddy? He's helping. Helping how? Flying the plane, I think. Sophie smiled. Daddy's really good at flying. How do you know? He told me stories. He was called Falcon. He could fly anything. Olivia's hands went cold. Falcon. She'd heard that call sign before. Years ago, a viral video of an emergency landing. A pilot who'd brought down a crippled aircraft with no engines and saved everyone on board. She'd watched that video, marveled at it, never thought she'd meet the pilot, and she'd mocked him. The plane leveled out. The turbulence settled. The intercom clicked on. A different voice. Daniel's voice. Steady and calm. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Lieutenant Daniel Hayes speaking. We've stabilized the aircraft. We're diverting to Reykjavik, Iceland for an emergency landing. Your first officer, Mark Peterson, is doing an excellent job. Stay in your seats, stay calm, and we'll have you on the ground safely in about 40 minutes. The cabin erupted in relieved sobs and nervous applause. Daniel returned to the cabin 30 minutes later, his shirt soaked with sweat, a small ID bracelet visible on his wrist. Lieutenant D. Hayes, call sign Falcon. He sat down next to Sophie, who immediately hugged him. Daddy, you saved everyone. Just helped, baby. The first officer did most of the work. Olivia stared at him, her earlier arrogance completely gone. You're the Falcon? From the 2014 incident? That was a long time ago. You saved 200 people when both engines failed. I did my job. And now you're... What? Just a regular passenger? I'm a father. That's my job now. She couldn't speak. Shame washed over her in waves. A passenger named James Martinez recorded video and posted, The man in 12F just saved our lives. Went into the cockpit like it was nothing. Came out like nothing happened. When we thanked him, he just said, "Thank you for staying calm." Then picked up his daughter and held her. That's a real hero. The plane landed safely in Reykjavik. Emergency crews surrounded them. Medical personnel rushed aboard to check the captain. He'd suffered a severe panic attack brought on by an undiagnosed heart condition. He'd live, but he was done flying. The first officer, Mark, found Daniel in the cabin. His eyes were red from crying with relief. "Sir, I need to know. Where did you serve?" 56th Fighter Squadron, U.S. Air Force. Mark's jaw dropped. "Jesus Christ. Iron Falcon?" Daniel smiled softly. "Old call sign. I left it behind." "You're a legend in pilot training. The emergency landing in 2014. They still show that recording to every new pilot. You're the example of what to do when everything goes wrong." Olivia felt like the ground was tilting beneath her. "You're that pilot? The one the whole world called a hero?" "Nobody's a hero, ma'am. I just did what I was trained to do." "But you left the Air Force. Why?" His face darkened. "Lost some good people in a training accident. My fault. I gave an order. They followed it. They died. I couldn't wear the uniform after that." "But the investigation cleared you." "Doesn't matter. I still see their faces." Sophie tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, are you sad?" "No, baby, just tired." The captain had regained consciousness and insisted on meeting Daniel before they deplaned. He stood, wobbly but determined, and saluted. "Sir, you saved my crew and my passengers. I owe you everything." Daniel shook his hand. "You owe me nothing. Take care of yourself, and maybe consider retirement. Your heart needs it." As passengers prepared to deplane, the intercom crackled one more time. The first officer's voice, "Ladies and gentlemen, before you exit, please remain seated for one moment. The flight crew would like to acknowledge someone special." The cabin went silent. "Lieutenant Daniel Hayes, call sign Falcon, former U.S. Air Force. The man in seat 12F just saved this aircraft and everyone on it. Sir, we salute you." "Wait." The crew lined up at the front of the cabin, all 6 of them, and saluted in unison. Then the passengers stood, one by one, and applauded. The sound was deafening. Olivia stood too, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't stop them. As Daniel walked past her with Sophie, she grabbed his arm. "Daniel, I'm so sorry for everything I said. I judged you, mocked you. I'm so ashamed." He looked at her kindly. "You didn't know. Most people don't, and that's okay. Now you know what the sky looks like from the pilot's seat. It looks terrifying, only if you don't trust yourself." Sophie waved goodbye to Olivia. "Nice meeting you, pretty lady." Olivia waved back, unable to speak through her tears. An elderly passenger named Margaret Chen later wrote, "When they saluted him, that CEO stood at attention like a cadet. I saw her face, the shame, the respect, the complete transformation. Some people need to be humbled. She was, and she'll be better for it." 1 week after the flight, Olivia sat in her corner office overlooking London, unable to focus on work. She kept thinking about Daniel, about his calm in chaos, about his daughter's innocent faith in him, about how she judged a book by its cover and found out she couldn't have been more wrong. She called an emergency meeting with her human resources team. "Effective immediately, I want to revise our hiring policies. I want a veteran recruitment program. I want us actively seeking former military personnel for positions at every level of this company." Her HR director looked confused. "Why the sudden change?" "Because I learned something on a flight last week. Skills matter more than polish. Character matters more than credentials. And the people who've served their countries have both." The media caught wind of the story, not from Daniel, who refused all interviews, but from passengers who'd been on the flight. "CEO's life saved by man she mocked," read one headline. "From business class snob to humble leader, Olivia Moretti's transformation," read another. In interviews, Olivia didn't shy away from her shame. "I was arrogant, dismissive. I judged a man by his jacket instead of his character. And that man saved my life and everyone else on that plane. If I can learn one lesson and share it with the world, it's this. Dignity doesn't come from the seat you're in. It comes from how you face the storm." The story went viral. Millions of shares, thousands of comments. Most supported Olivia's growth. Some criticized her initial behavior. But everyone agreed on one thing. Daniel Hayes was a real hero who wanted no recognition. That evening, Olivia wrote Daniel an email. She tracked down his contact through the airline. Mr. Hayes, I know you don't want thanks, but I need to say it anyway. You not only saved my life that day, you saved my perspective. You reminded me what true strength looks like. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand recognition. It just shows up when needed. I've changed my company's policies because of you. We're now actively hiring veterans. It's a small start, but it's a start. If you ever need anything, for yourself or for Sophie, please reach out. With deep respect, Olivia. Daniel's reply came 2 hours later. Ms. Moretti, thank you for your kind words. I'm glad the changes you're making will help others. That matters more than any thanks. One piece of advice. Everyone has a story you don't know. The person in the worn jacket might have flown fighter jets. The quiet woman in the corner might have saved lives as a surgeon. Judge less. Listen more. And give yourself grace. You learned. You grew. That's what matters. Best, Daniel. Olivia read it 3 times, then printed it and hung it on her office wall. 2 weeks later, Daniel received an unexpected package at his home. Inside was a first-class leather flight jacket with Falcon embroidered on the chest. A note was attached. Mr. Hayes, you mentioned your old jacket was worn. Please accept this as a token of gratitude. I had it custom made by the same company that outfits our executive team. But more importantly, I wanted you to have something that honors who you are. The call sign isn't retired. It's just resting until Sophie is old enough to hear the full story. Respectfully, Olivia. Daniel showed the jacket to Sophie, who ran her small fingers over the embroidery. Daddy, Falcon is your special name? It was, a long time ago. Can I have a special name too? What would you like to be called? Sophie thought hard. Starling, because starlings are small, but they fly in the big groups and they're brave. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. Starling is perfect, baby. That night, he wrote back to Olivia. Ms. Moretti, the jacket is beautiful. Thank you. But the real gift you gave me was reminding me that the past doesn't have to define the future. That call signs can rest, but don't have to be buried. Sophie has chosen her own call sign, Starling. She says it's because starlings are small but brave. I think she's on to something. Perhaps someday she'll fly, perhaps not. But whatever she does, she'll know her father didn't run from who he was. He just learned to be it in a different way. With gratitude, Daniel Olivia kept that email too. And 3 months later, when her company launched a new aviation scholarship program for children of veterans, she named it the Starling Initiative. Because, she explained at the press conference, a little girl taught me that heroes come in all sizes. And sometimes the bravest thing is not the big flight, but the small choice to keep moving forward. When Sophie saw the news, she turned to Daniel with wide eyes. Daddy, that's my name. She used my name. She did, baby, because you inspired her. Me. But I didn't do anything. You believed in your daddy when someone else doubted him. That's everything. The Starling Initiative funded flying lessons, engineering camps, and college scholarships for hundreds of military children. Every recipient received a small pin, shaped like a starling in flight. And every year on the anniversary of the emergency landing, Olivia sent Daniel and Sophie a photo of that year's recipients. Proof that one moment of crisis had created ripples of opportunity for generations to come. From today forward, I choose to look at people a little longer than a heartbeat. I will live kindly. 3 months later, Olivia organized an event called Sky of Honor to recognize everyday heroes who've done extraordinary things. She sent Daniel a personal invitation. He politely declined. I appreciate the thought, but I'm not comfortable with awards or recognition. I did what anyone with my training should do. But Olivia persisted. Then come for Sophie. Let her see that her father is celebrated for who he is, not just what he does. Daniel thought about it for days. Finally, Sophie made the decision for him. Daddy, I want to go. I want to see other people say thank you to you. Because I say it every day, but maybe you need to hear it from them too. How could he refuse that? On the night of the event, they arrived early. Daniel wore the leather jacket Olivia had sent him. Sophie wore a new dress with small embroidered starlings on the hem, a gift from Olivia. Backstage, Olivia greeted them nervously. I'm so glad you came. I wasn't sure you would. Sophie insisted. Olivia knelt down. Thank you, Sophie, for sharing your daddy with us tonight. It's okay. Daddy says sharing good things makes them better. Your daddy is very wise. The event hall filled with 500 guests, business leaders, politicians, media. The lights dimmed. Olivia stood on stage in front of 500 guests. Tonight, we honor those who serve without seeking glory, those who save lives without demanding recognition, those who fly under the radar while making the world safer for all of us. A video began to play on the massive screen behind her. Footage from the emergency landing in Iceland. Audio of Daniel's calm voice talking Mark through the crisis. Interviews with passengers he'd saved. Then footage of Daniel walking through an airport, holding Sophie's hand. Just an ordinary father in an ordinary moment. Olivia's voice continued. 3 months ago, I sat in seat 12E and mocked the man in 12F. I judged him by his worn jacket, his choice of water over champagne, his quiet demeanor. I assumed he didn't belong in business class. The audience was silent. Then the plane lost control, and that man walked into the cockpit and saved 237 lives, including mine. She paused, her voice breaking. That man was Lieutenant Daniel Hayes, call sign Falcon, a decorated Air Force pilot who left his career to raise his daughter alone. A man who paid for his business class ticket with honest work, not corporate expense accounts. A man I will spend the rest of my life trying to emulate. The applause was thunderous. He's here tonight. Not because he wanted recognition, but because his 7-year-old daughter told him he should come. So I ask you, please welcome Daniel and Sophie Hayes to the stage. Daniel stood, his heart pounding. Sophie grabbed his hand. Come on, Daddy, they want to meet you. They walked onto the stage together. The applause grew louder. People stood. Olivia handed Daniel the microphone. He looked out at the sea of faces and froze for a moment. Then he felt Sophie squeeze his hand. 3 times. Their secret code. I love you. He squeezed back 3 times and found his voice. Thank you, but I need to be clear about something. I'm not a hero. Heroes are the people who show up every day to jobs that don't make headlines. The nurses who work double shifts. The teachers who pay for school supplies out of pocket. The parents raising kids alone while working 2 jobs. His voice grew stronger. I had training. I had experience. On that flight, I had the tools I needed. But most people facing crisis don't have those tools. They have courage. They have determination. They have love for the people depending on them. That's heroism. He looked at Olivia. Ms. Moretti taught me something too. She taught me that it's never too late to change, to admit you were wrong, to grow. That takes more courage than landing a plane. The audience erupted again. A reporter shouted from the crowd, "Will you ever fly again?" Daniel smiled. I fly every day, just not in cockpits. I fly when I teach Sophie about physics and angles, when I help her build model planes, when I watch her imagine her own future in the sky. That's the best kind of flying there is. Sophie grabbed the microphone. My daddy is the best pilot in the world, even when he's on the ground. Laughter and applause filled the room. Olivia wiped away tears. After the event, Olivia walked outside to get air, and there, standing by the venue entrance with Sophie, was Daniel. You came. Sophie insisted. She wanted to see what all the fuss was about. Did you watch? Parts of it, through the window. What did you think? Daniel smiled. I think you're using your platform well, helping people see past their assumptions. That matters. Sophie tugged on Olivia's dress. Miss Olivia, when you fly next time, will you be nicer to the people sitting next to you? Olivia knelt down to Sophie's level. I promise, I'll remember that everyone has a story. Good. Daddy says stories are the most important things. Your daddy is very wise. Sophie beamed. I know. Daniel and Olivia stood together, looking up at the night sky. A plane passed overhead, its lights blinking against the stars. Do you miss it? Olivia asked. Flying? Every day, but I wouldn't trade what I have now. Sophie needs a father more than the sky needs another pilot. The sky needs good pilots. There are others, better than me, less broken. I don't think you're broken. I think you're human, and that makes you better. Sophie grabbed both their hands. Can we get ice cream? The fancy kind? They both laughed. As they walked together toward a nearby cafe, a man in an airport uniform approached Daniel. Excuse me, are you Lieutenant Hayes? Former lieutenant, yes. I watched you land that plane in Iceland. I'm a ground crew chief. I just want to say thank you for showing us what professionalism looks like, for proving that even in crisis, calmness wins. Daniel shook his hand. Thank you for what you do. Ground crews keep us safe. Never forget that. The man saluted. Daniel returned it, years of muscle memory taking over. Olivia watched it all and realized something profound. Heroes don't need uniforms. They don't need titles. They just need to show up when it matters. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, leave a comment and subscribe to My Stories. We tell the stories that shouldn't be forgotten, because sometimes the person in the worn jacket saved lives you'll never know about. And sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones who walk away from glory to hold their children's hands. Thank you for watching. Thank you for believing. Thank you for choosing humility.